Wow, so today's the 14th of May, 2017. I'm officially home from my last quote-unquote vacation that I'm still in denial or in some sort of delusional state, but I think that vacations are supposed to be a relaxing thing for me. One thing I'd like to point out, since this is a very good reflective time right now with all the epic shit that's been going on, this is a memo to me, since most of the time I'm the only one that watches these, and more or less these are made for me to reflect on as opposed to them being made for entertainment for everybody else. The entertainment or potentially indirect kind of insight or value that anybody else gets to watching these, because I know some people watch them, is just a bonus. The first and foremost thing is for my reflection. I have Uranus not only in Sagittarius, which makes random things, when things go really erratic or awry for me, it can be unintangible and uncontainable and be way more than I ever thought it would be. It's like applying Jupiter to everything chaotic, right? Exactly. Another thing, the 12th house that's ruled by Pisces also has similar effects to essentially Jupiter and the 9th house, which has to do with it not being controllable, and that's where my Jupiter is, and it's in Aries. So I'm going to have chaotic, unpredictable, untangible events transpiring to me that would be unlike anyone else's, specifically traumatic when I travel, because Aquarius is the ruling sign for my 9th house of travel. Right. Hi, Nino. Me. And all that chaotic stuff is going to come directly from everything else that is not mommy. Right, me? So others, everything. People, place, things, others. Yeah. So long story short, if I ever want to relax, the last thing I should ever think should work is to travel away from home. And it's not usually it's not usually when I'm there per se. It's the getting to and from, which is, again, has been documented thoroughly throughout at least my Facebook. Thanks to like that My Day thing and the little video clips that I can make, I've documented that thoroughly over and over again throughout different trips I've gone. And that being said, another thing that I need to be aware of is my draconic chart, pretty much, as I've said before, is pretty much the same as my ascendant's chart. The only difference is I have that Plutonian signature with my Mercury, which is one of the personal planets, right? And yeah, so essentially my soul, or whatever, has accepted the chaos kind of signature that I now have in my chart, and has learned to somehow mentally balance themselves and be zen about it. Accept it. Right. So, I'm assuming that my challenge in this manifestation was to make that signature more erratic, because that would explain the extra hard aspect or whatever in my chart now, and then also give me a very distinct Plutonian signature with my mentality, to where I would feel almost mentally scarred from said chaotic events going on in my life. And then I'd also feel an overwhelming urgency to find a way to control or contain my environment, to basically inhibit or, basically slow down the chaos, thinking that if I control it, it'll give me some sort of security. But the closer I've come to trying to control my daily environment, which that would be Mercury and Pluto in the 6th house, the more crazy and erratic things become. The opposition with it with Jupiter and Aries, trine with all the Uranus planet, the Uranus and Saturn and the Moon in Sagittarius. And the more that I try to control it, the more erratic things get. The more erratic things get, the more it tests my sanity. So the more I feel like I have control, the more insane I become. That is the epitome of my life cycle in a nutshell there. And apparently it's, give or take, of course, when I became an adult in society standards today, around 18ish, that was when I was at least cut from the strings enough to fuck up on my own to realize where my limits are. Right. Or my Saturnian kind of limitations are, which can change on the fly at any time. So that's one thing that I need to understand. And so one thing that I've also tried to emphasize is that I feel like I can control information and knowledge, or that I feel like I can control everything if I know everything. And that's yet another thing I need to realize. Despite the fact that I would say blessed with Jupiter in the 12th house and then Neptune in the 8th house. Neptune in the 8th house makes me elusive with my own secrets, give or take. Some things, if I really don't want people to know, they'll never know. And there's still things that some people will never know that I've never talked about. But then having Jupiter in the 12th house, it gives me insights to other people's secrets. But another thing with the Plutonian signature opposing that is that I feel that Jupiter in Aries feels the need, like this self-righteous shit, to basically expose everybody's lies. And in the process of doing so, it makes my life chaotic. That's the trine with all those Sagittarius planets in my 7th house. So, my gift is my curse is my gift. And another thing it also tries to emphasize with me is that I get this arrogance about me, thinking that because I know all these things, that I am supposed to be the person that reveals all things, and that's something I need to address. And then I think things just are, life in general, or the cosmos, or whatever, the signatures, the cycles, they just throw it back in my face to try to prove I'm wrong all the time, which I'm grateful for, actually. It used to bother me a lot, especially having Saturn and Sagittarius, right? But I'm grateful for, because it makes me more or less humble, at least intellectually, and understanding that I don't possibly know everything, because it makes me a fucking horrible, like, unbearable bitch that way. But the funny thing is that I've always been emphasized, well, not always, but I would say I'm more emphasized on mental facets as opposed to emotional facets. That's very evident. And now, with Pluto going over my 8th house, it's gone over my Neptune, about maybe 8 degrees ago. But as it continues to go over my 8th house, it's basically changing the entire structure of my mind. Because your mind's based essentially on everything that's attributed to Neptune. So, with my Neptune being in Capricorn, that would be essentially the structure of my entire mind, and my entire existence in general. Because I have a poster over there that I actually referenced from Mark Jones' lecture at NORWAC, I think a year or two ago, where it's Neptune coming out of like the ocean, an ocean wave, and then Pluto, and then it rises up to the moon and the nodes, meaning that the origin of things, or the structure of things, starts with Neptune. So Pluto is in the process of completely gutting and restructuring me from the core up. And that being said, it has made me even more mentally erratic, and it's going to change everything about my life as I know it, and it's going to bring all different forms of chaos to my life that I've never experienced. And the closer I keep getting to thinking that I'm going to be able to predict what said chaos will transpire, it actually, the closer I think that I'm going to get to being able to pinpoint exactly what kind of chaos will transpire, the further from reality I will get. Right. Because that's the whole point. My vices in this life were my Plutonian signature. To be able to try to observe, it's not supposed to be me controlling my environment or anything. It's supposed to give me the hindsight, like Scorpio Mercury candid camera or surveillance camera footage kind of thing. For me to be able to absorb all the details of said chaotic events going on, so I can basically survive them, essentially. The vice comes from me feeling so in tune and so knowledgeable, because the opposition with Jupiter, with seeing all this information that no one else sees, that I think that I can not only control my own life, but control other people's lives. And that is actually the motive as to why I started getting into astrology. I didn't like when some of that chaos actually came directly threatening my life, for dangerous situations that directly had to do with others, people. I felt that I should use astrology to give myself a scorpionic, like, heads up, more than I already have, to be able to pinpoint when something dangerous is coming my way. And I can't do that. And even if I was, I can do that to an extent, because of my overzealous kind of aspects of my chart. I take that too far and think that I can abuse that, like every person does. They think they can abuse power when they get it. It's the Plutonian 101. I'm starting to notice with that Scorpio Mercury some things that I'm doing with my behavior in particular. Has nothing to do with astrology per se. Just understanding how psychology works and behavior works, and the things that I've been using on other people my entire adult life to be able to pinpoint if they're hiding stuff from me, or if they actually are aware of something that they may not consciously be aware of. Like, for example, I was looking for business cards to hand out to people while I was down in Vegas. I knew I had a bunch made. I just had made them. For some reason, and I used to actually think it was because I was just being an airhead. But as I'm coming to find out, as this psychic signature continues to, I wouldn't say get stronger, but be consistent, to where I can pick up on patterns. I'm starting to notice that it's not me being an airhead. It's basically something ahead of me, which I would guess would be, since my Plutonian signature more or less is part of me that gives me a heads up, and Pluto's going over my Neptune. That would mean that subconsciously, my subconscious is giving me a heads up, aka psychic stuff. So, not only did I completely have a bust in Vegas and get absolutely no readings done, and partially that was due to essentially my fault. A couple people, like my friend Saturn, contacted me, but then I kind of tried to articulate to them that I don't have a place per se to be having them come over for readings, because I was having respect for my friend, or my then friend Curtis. And I only say I hate to say it that way because he might actually watch this, and again, no hard feelings, I'll get into that. But I had respect for him enough to not even ask him if I could bring somebody over, because I just, normally that would be something that I would expect somebody else to do for me. But again, here in at the end of all this, a reason why I even say then friend is because I'm coming to realize some things that So anyway, I left all those business cards here. I didn't have one, not one. And in fact, Curtis's, boyfriend thing that I predicted that he would meet last year. I predicted last year that he would meet him this year. Claimed that he was gonna, he was talking to his producer about me, because we happened to go on some ghost adventure kind of things, and it's fascinating. And I don't know really anything about his show, and I really don't watch TV or anything like that. And that right there in itself, I know that I go from one side to the other spectrum wise to challenge myself and keep myself from going too stern and strict with one thing or the other. But he was going to talk to him about putting me in the show for this fall, and that kind of lined up with some things that have been basically insinuating that I would be broadcasting or whatever, kind of who I am in line with my career. And I didn't have any business cards to give that guy, and also when I was trying to throw together like a 5-minute kind of clip to show the producer, no matter how much I worked on it and how many times I tried to redo it, it still just wasn't coming together. And that's another thing I'm starting to notice. So I've just thought, throughout my life, that my life's just supposed to be a struggle, like an uphill battle, the whole freaking way. Speaking of which, it's freezing now. Come on. But now I'm coming to find out that I've just been doing exactly everything wrong from the get-go. And the way that the way that things work, since Saturn's there with all that chaos signature and stuff, and with Jupiter in my 12th house, since that's like the spiritual kind of, house or whatever, if I'm doing everything right, like the way that, essentially the cosmos wants me to, everything will just somehow magically fall into place as if it were some sort of fairy tale phenomenon. If I'm doing everything wrong, or I'm approaching things wrong, or I'm not doing things the way that Saturn more or less would want me to, everything is going to blow up in my face every step of the way. Not even joking, that's not an exaggeration. I would literally step on each shoelace with every step and untie my shoes and have to retie them every 5 seconds, and that has happened. In fact, it happened on my way down to Vegas the whole way. Yeah. And, whew, I'm starting to get overwhelmed just talking about this. And I haven't even gotten that far. So I'm going to cut this for a minute. Yeah. Wait a minute. Let's see if I can go on. See if we can just kind of end this on something, like the whole train of thought. The mutable years, it obviously has been going on during my Saturn return, which just emphasizes that chaotic signature and all those Sagittarius planets, or all those planets in Sagittarius, whatever. And, yeah, so, again, I'm learning now that all the things that I felt that were going to be permanent or long-term, that there's no such thing for that for me. Saturn in Sagittarius pretty much makes that impossible. And me, on the other side of the spectrum, when we're looking at aspect-wise, see, if you look at Pluto first, then Jupiter, then all my Sagittarius planets, the more that Pluto, my Plutonian signature, tries to reinforce this sort of sense of control that I can predict with the Jupiter what direction I'm going to go in, the more chaos actually unfolds around me, despite what Pluto's now doing to my Neptune. That's a whole other ballgame that influences everything, of course, but is not directly not a direct catalyst per se with said chaos and control going on. It's just another factor. It's a Blue Royale kind of thing. But the things in people and people actually in particular, now that I think about it, that I thought or think, I wouldn't say think, because I think I'm getting over that at this point. I think I'm getting over that. The thought that there's certain people in my life that are going to be permanent or like be a foundation for me. There's no such thing as people being a foundation for me. I will understand what is important for someone to be a constructive foundational piece in my life, or to be constructive in my life with Saturn. And I will be torn in between going with the ones that are unpredictable and dysfunctional, which is the Uranus on the opposite side of that. And what will help me be grounded. And if I try to go too far with either one, the other one is going to basically completely sabotage the other. And just because of how random I am, I'm always going to somehow gravitate towards the Uranus end, while I'm trying to cling to the Saturn side. Like, I've got these people. Like, for example, last year, if you look at some of my vlogs when I was in Vegas, I was thoroughly convinced that my friend Curtis was going to be like an anchor in my life. That he was somebody that eventually I will be able to count on. Despite the fact that throughout the entire duration of our friendship and us knowing each other, he's been nothing but an unpredictable facet of my life. And then on top of that, I like grouped him with another person who, no offense to her or anything, if I called either of them, her or him, and told them I had an emergency, if I was going to give you like a percentage of, do I really think that they're going to actually come through for me, I wouldn't even give them maybe 50%, 50-50, maybe 40. Depends on how urgent it is. And it depends on actually what's going on in their life. In particular. Yep. Yeah. And then funny enough, the people that I thought were selfish, and they are to an extent, and would never be able to come through or be there for me, that I just automatically adopted or have concluded that kind of thing from my previous interactions with them, are the only people that have actually been consistently there for me. Stacy and Danny. Even though Danny, has her moments. But, yeah. And it's funny is that last year I said that me and Curtis are going to become even more and more closer as time goes on. And it seemed like that we did. And I think the reason why he seemed to try so hard, or think that we were as close as we were, is because of how I worded that. And because him being a Taurus, and he's got like the moon in his 11th house, he really listened to what I said, and really believed that our association was way more than it was, because of what I said. And granted, that's another problem that I have, is that because I do have some insight with things, and I am ridiculously, almost scarily accurate with some things, that it's easy, even for myself as well as other people, to get swept up into believing every word I say because of my previous track record of being correct. Because that just makes sense, and that's how things usually work. It's called credibility, right? So, Curtis was the one that sent me down there. I spent a week and a half, a little over a week, sorry. I went there I got there on Friday, and I left there on Saturday. Wait, I don't even know anymore. I left on the 12th. Let me look at the date. I left on Friday, so I got there Friday, and I left Friday. I was essentially just, cooped up in Curtis's condo thing the entire time. Besides when we went out and I hung out with him. I helped him resolve his lying boyfriend that continued to lie to him up till probably the last day I saw him. And then even still, at the very moment that I last saw Curtis and his boyfriend, they were both... Well, Curtis actually didn't lie to my face. He tried not to, because he knew for a fact that I would see right through that shit, and I already had a feeling. Which, that's another thing, too. It's like, just do yourselves a favor, guys. Anybody who knows me, or is a friend of mine, or whatever, just, if you intend on lying to me, or you know that you're a pathological liar, or you have a habitual history of lying, just don't say a word to me. Don't talk to me. Just go. Just go. Just go. Even halfway up here on my bus trip home, I was going through my entire friends list on Facebook and everything, and just not even deleting people, blocking people. Like, you're a liar, you're a liar, you're a liar. I can't deal with it anymore. I just can't. Just can't. And even now still, I'm still, going over, like, people in my head, and I'm like, should I fucking completely X those people, X that person, X this person? Going through a huge cleaning house with that. So it's not only Curtis that basically got the boot with this. And yeah. But I find it fascinating that although there was some really, really life-altering... I would say they're life-altering. Definitely memorable. I will never forget them. Lifetime events that transpired when I was hanging out with Curtis this week. It didn't directly have anything to do with Curtis and my relationship. He just happened to be the vehicle, and I say that, literally and metaphorically, to go on to these adventures and experiences. And although I'm not a huge fan of his boyfriend, and you know what I find really funny? The reason why I was able to actually pick out this guy's secrets, ironically enough, and one of the main secrets he did have is he was lying about who he was. Not just his name, but because that's irrelevant, kind of. But he was lying about his birth date. And he even fabricated an actual birth date to Curtis for me to look at his chart. And when he continued to just hang out and talk with me for a couple days, I actually know enough psychologically and through medical associations with astrology, with different zodiac archetypes, that I knew for a fact he couldn't be a fucking Aries. And he sat there and tried to tell me to my face that he's an Aries over and over. I said, no, you're not. You're not. Like, I didn't call him out at first. I was just like, I was just indirectly calling him out, like making commentary, and he didn't pick up on it. Which is really funny, because you'd think he would. I mean, Aries usually wouldn't, but him being a Virgo, you think he would. Then again, the mutable years is definitely making it difficult for mutable signs, especially Virgo, because they usually are very meticulous with details. I was able to point out time and time again with different things he said, different quirks he had, behavior, medical conditions he went over, like that he was a Virgo over and over. And the first and foremost thing, the reason why I decided to start pursuing astrology to the extent that I have, is because I continually began dating Virgos. And they were horrible, horrible human beings. I'm not saying all of them are, because I have a friend, Jackie, that I love her to death, and she's a Virgo. And me and her sit there and talk shit about Virgos all day long, which is really funny. But Virgos are catty like that usually. And Jackie's perfect, because she's catty, but she's not catty enough to where I can't handle her. Because everybody's got to be catty sometimes. But when their entire life revolves around being catty, I can't do that. But, I was able to pinpoint exactly that he was a Virgo. And then by the end of the week, I actually have it on audio confession. Which, since I'm not talking to Curtis anymore, and I'm not talking to him at all, and I'm sure he's still going to somehow try to utilize some of the events that transpired and try to incorporate it into his show, with or without me, which is technically exactly what Philip was telling me to do, telling me that somebody's going to try to steal my content. I have no reason I cannot upload him basically, and he thinks that I didn't record that. He doesn't know that I recorded that, but who cares? Again, who cares? Prove to me that you can do something about that. And even if he does, and if he were to, like, you know, try to pursue any kind of legal things with that, I will actually start watching Hulu and watching his show. Some detective show that's supposed to be based in Vegas. And I'll wait until I see him use some of my stuff, and I will quickly make up actually I've already been writing it out, a story of what happened, and I have the documentation proving the dates of when they happened, and I will sue the fuck out of him for stealing my stuff and making profit off of it. But yeah, I have I started recording him as I got him to start admitting to everything that I basically had already figured out. And even up to those times when I was telling Curtis that, because when I first showed up, Curtis was in distress, saying he's lying to me, I don't know what he's doing behind my back, but he's doing all kinds of things. And it was evident. It was evident. Because that's basically my whole MO. Why I watch people in the first place, because they can't be trusted. Because they're unpredictable, right? And I'm really good with betrayal and stuff. That's my thing. So, right away, I wasn't even there for an hour. I already knew he was hiding something. And it just took me from that Friday night till Tuesday. It was Mars Day, actually. Yeah. So, technically, if you want to give me a full day, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It took me 4 days. I found out all kinds of stuff. 10 minutes of him basically spilling everything that he's been hiding. I'm like, dude, do not leave me in a room locked with somebody who's got secrets all day on a Mars day. That's all I gotta say. But even after all that, and Curtis was, you know, on the verge of almost breaking up with this guy because of how fucking conniving and lying he was. I tried to be supportive and say, well, at least, like, he wasn't quote-unquote cheating on you, which, honestly, to be frank, I'm not even 100%. He wasn't. Because he claims that one of the things why he kept sneaking off with Curtis's car is because he has a gambling addiction. But yet the one time that we actually went gambling was one of the times that he disappeared with the car and actually left, and he didn't gamble. Weird, right? Right. I still never saw what those receipts were he was hiding in the car from that moment. And Curtis believes what he says about the gambling thing. As soon as he starts... And what the problem is that Curtis... I think it's because of the moon in his 11th house. But he, like, as soon as somebody gives him a sob story, no matter what they did to him, or what they did to whoever, basically, he turns around and he justifies everything they just did because they're crying. And saying that they're just in distress and they did something really erratic and off the wall because they were emotional. And I think that that's Curtis projecting. Because he's got moon in the 11th house, which would mean he does, basically when his emotions get out of whack, he does unpredictable, erratic, crazy things. Aquarian things. Right. So, yeah, long story short, I was basically bailed on. And it wasn't even so much that was a big deal, because Danny wanted to hang out with me, Saturn wanted me to do her chart, John wanted me to hang out with him. There were plenty of people that wanted me to hang out. But because Curtis never, like, told me what we're doing, per se, or what's going on, I didn't have the opportunity, per se, to say, hey, can I go see my dad? Can I go do this? Can I go do that? And even when he said, initially, you know, do you want to go see your dad? It was for a split second. And then I said, yeah, sure. And then within hours, he disappeared with Chris. And that was the last time I saw them. So, I mean, even if he would have said, yeah, you can go stay with whoever, I would have been stuck where I was, not been able to get back to Curtis's place, get my shit, and then fucking get on the bus. So I'd have been fucked all over again. It was 2012, all over again, as I kept reiterating on my Facebook wall. And then I spent 5-6 hours with Danny, and I started I had my chart stuff out already. I figured, I've known Danny since we were kids, and I found it fascinating too, as I've reviewed Stacy's chart after just knowing him for 5 years. There's so many things that I can now see that because I've gotten substantially better than when I was then. So I figured, hey, well, I'll do it for Danny. I started looking at it, and apparently there's things that, she's almost 30 too, obviously, because she's done with her Saturn return at the end of this year, that she didn't know about herself her entire life, and she had like a really eye-opening experience. And not only that, but apparently her younger brother that I used to partially babysit sometimes is not only almost the exact same age as Stacy, but is almost like Stacy's doppelganger. And I don't mean doppelganger by ghost thing. And when I say ghost thing, I mean I'm gonna have to talk about that in another.
Hi, Nino. Mommy. Come here, me.
Yeah. Hi. Hi.
What you doing, me? Hi.
So yeah, just with the 5 hours I spent with Danny, I had more of like a personal bonding experience with Danny, a memorable experience, like personally with Danny, than I did with anybody else while I was there the entire week. I would say, unless it was the ghosties. Which the ghosties thing is going to have to be a whole other video. Because I still don't even know what the fuck is going on with that. And I don't think I ever will. And I think that's partially one of the things that I'm trying to emphasize in this video. That Mommy, she's not going to be able to fucking know everything. Right, me? Right, me? Right, me?
She's trying to tell me Happy Mother's Day, Mom. Me. You came home for Mother's Day, me. Me, meow? Meow. Meow. Meow.
I'm going to go. This is probably unended, but that's my life, right? Yeah. Adios.